Okay.
So after the contract is signed, it starts 90 days after that, and that's when we start tracking. And then we report on a quarterly basis.
And you're compensated quarterly if there's
Yes.
savings.
Yes.
And if there's no savings, do you compensate us?
No.
Mrs. Finney?
Thank you. So you're saying that you come to us, you pay for anything that needs to be changed, and all we do is give you, at the first year, obviously your cost is gonna be higher, 75%. We get 25. That's not money you're giving us, that's money we're saving on bills and stuff, correct?
Correct.
So how is this a lose situation? We're not spending any money. There's no way we can lose money, correct?
Correct.
So if you put this stuff in and we don't save money, do we owe you anything?
No.
It sounds to me like this is a win-win situation for everybody.
Mr. Chairman.
Mayor?
And that was the way we perceived it when we had the meeting. And we did ask the questions that Mr. DeJohn and Mr. Mano are asking as far as, you know, the details of the contract. And also, we were smiling because Mr. Mano used the same terminology that I did, that this thing has been messed up from day one, and will this help? And this is a step in the right direction of at least, you know, if they do something that could straighten the system out, get it working more, you know, the way it should be working and function correctly, then we're also going to save money in the long run. So that was why we felt it was a no-brainer.
Just to follow up, I'm not as interested in the cost-saving aspect of it as I am in getting this system right. Could we make it a priority that if indeed we award the contract, the first order of business is a comprehensive study of this heating cooling system and what it's going to take to fix it?
That would be a completely different contract than this agreement, because this agreement is just for this cost-sharing arrangement. So if council would like, I mean, we could have Gardner come in and do a comprehensive look at the whole system and let us know what they think. But they may be doing part of that to start with in this arrangement. So, you know, during this process, they might come to us and say, you know, there's some things that are out of whack here, and maybe we need to fix. So, I just think this is a step towards that direction, and you know, and we've said it all along. I know you and I have had conversations about it too, Mr. Mano, that, you know, maybe this thing just takes a huge overhaul, but at least we wouldn't have to do that at first.
Mrs. Snyder?
I just had one quick question. Are you currently working with any other communities?
Yeah, we just did this at Garfield Heights, and they saved, I want to say 20 to 30% off their utility bills, and we also got them to, I don't know if you folks are familiar with Energy Star. We got the building Energy Star certified, so yeah, it was a win-win for them.
Thank you.
Yeah, I had a chance to do a little bit of research myself, and Garfield Heights, the annual was a 40,000 square foot building, I believe, and the annual savings on that is $12,000 a year. And I know you did some work in Rocky River as well on their ice
Yes.
rink, and the savings on that is 20% in annual energy savings. So, any other questions, Mr. DeJohn?
Who can I talk to at Garfield Heights regarding the program you had over there?
Mayor Clova.
I'm sorry, what was the name?
Mayor Clova.
And if you also want to go to their website, there's a nice video on there from the city of Rocky River. That's pretty informative. Okay, any other questions? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to ordinances. And our first ordinance is ordinance 2016-17. Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ordinance number 2016-17, an ordinance amending Chapter 1151 of the Codified Ordinances of the City of Mayfield Heights titled general provisions and definitions by amending section 1151.05. This is second reading, and there is a public hearing that has been scheduled for June 13, 2016 at 6:40 p.m.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Do I have a motion to place ordinance 2016-17 on second reading? Moved by Mrs. Finney, second by Mrs. Snyder. Roll call on that motion.
Mrs. Snyder?
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. Mercurio?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mrs. Finney?
Yes.
Ordinance number 2016-17 has been placed on second reading. Next is ordinance 2016-18. Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ordinance number 2016-18, an ordinance amending Chapter 1171 of the Codified Ordinances of the City of Mayfield Heights, titled U4, Local Retail and Wholesale Districts, by amending Section 1171.02. This is the second reading, and there is a public hearing that has been scheduled again on June 13, 2016 at 6:50 p.m.
Do I have a motion to place ordinance 2016-18 on second reading? Approved by Mr. DeJohn, second by Mrs. Sabetta. We have a roll call on that motion.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. Mercurio?
Yes.
Mrs. Finney?
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder?
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Ordinance number 2016-18 has been placed on second reading. Next is ordinance number 2016-19. Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ordinance number 2016-19, an ordinance partially suspending the rules and regulations regarding the sale, possession, and consumption of alcohol at the Mayfield Heights Park during Mayfield Heights Unity Days for 2016. First reading.
Do I have a motion to suspend the rules? Approved by Mrs. Finney, second by Mr. Mano. Roll call on suspension.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. Mercurio?
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mrs. Finney?
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder?
Yes.
Do I have a motion to approve? Approved by Mr. DeJohn, second by Mrs. Finney. Discussion, this ordinance will allow us to sell beer and wine at, during our community unity days. I believe this is the third year that we've done this. And it's just the procedure that we have to go through. Mayor, anything to add?
Nothing to add.
Any questions? Okay, roll call on motion to approve.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder?
Yes.
Mrs. Finney?
Yes.
Mr. Mercurio?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Okay, by a vote of 6-0, that ordinance is approved. Next, we move on to motions. Mr. Murphy, would you please read the first motion?
Yes, Mr. President. Motion to confirm the decision of the Planning Commission approving a preliminary site plan for a new 5,500 square foot medical office building, contingent upon resolving the traffic concerns noted by TMS Engineers, Inc. and the Fire Department for Leedy Medical Office Building, 2060 Lander Road.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Do I have a motion to approve? Approved by Mrs. Finney, second by Mr. DeJohn. Discussion. Council was copied on the Planning Commission meeting minutes. This was a unanimous approval by the commission. Again, this is for the approval of a preliminary site plan. Mr. John, do you have anything to add? And I know the applicant is here. If anyone has any questions for the applicant.
No, I just have one question for the applicant.
Mr. DeJohn?
Do you see any problem with eliminating that South Drive?
No.
Okay.
We had a brief meeting last week with staff and one of the representatives from TMS, and I think we worked out a solution to eliminate the north curb cut. So I think we're in good shape.
Thank you.
Mr. Mano?
That's all I wanted to
Question?
make sure was that they were gonna eliminate that curb cut, so that's fine.
Does anyone else have any other questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Mayor?
did you meet with the fire department? Did you guys figure out the turn yet, radius in there yet?
Tom just mentioned to me that there was some discussion this morning in regards to the fire department meeting. did, discuss the hydrant location and the turning radiuses, and, I think we've resolved that too. Unless there's any issue. So, is there anything else you wanna add?
Mayor, at that meeting, there was a question for the fire department in regard to the hydrant. There's a hydrant there, and it doesn't make sense to add another hydrant. So they've approved using the existing hydrant as long as it's only 50 feet to the building. For the fire department connection is no more than 50 feet from the building, and they can't really give an answer on the radius until council approves. They go for the final approval, and they hear the results from the engineer and the traffic engineer.
On the turning radius.
Yeah, because any exits any curb cuts they use
It's
has
gonna
to
affect it.
satisfy the fire.
Gotcha, okay.
Any other questions for Mr. DeJohn or the applicant? Okay, seeing none, we have a motion on the table. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay? That motion is approved. The time is now 7:52, and we will adjourn into executive session.